the new album by H.E.R entitled Back of My Mind. This is the official debut studio album by H.E.R, a very mysterious female artist and just a very mysterious R&B artist in general, as she finally comes through and makes her highly anticipated come up album. As we all gather from the first track of the album entitled We Made It, H.E.R is officially celebrating the fact that she made it as a very big, iconic, and just a very big name in the music industry. And in my opinion, I feel that it's very criminal to consider this particular project H.E.R's come up album, because in my opinion, I feel that the first two albums that she dropped before this album were actually pretty damn impressive. Back in 2017, H.E.R released her self-entitled debut mixtape, I believe. It was a combination of Volume 1 and Volume 2, two EPs that she dropped when she was underground, I believe. And she honestly came through with some very like classic sort of traditional R&B stuff, but we were all wondering who this person was. She was hiding her face and everything. She was like low-key doing some Sia shit, back in the day, when for a while we did not know what the fuck Sia looked like. She appeared on Mean Tweets with Jimmy Kimmel at some point, and she just fucking had her back towards the camera. She was eating fucking peanut butter for some shit, I don't know. But then again, if you look up fucking Sia on Google, you see her face on there. But I guess at this point you can't really believe everything you see on the internet. I mean, for all we know, fucking H.E.R Delirious could be fucking Sia at this point. But on some real shit, H.E.R did pull off a Sia by refusing to show her face and just show her identity to the world. She was very secretive at first, with just her stage name H.E.R. You really don't really know what to gather from that personality. All you know is that you know that voice, that she's very talented, and you want more. And the world got more a few years later with I Used to Know Her. That one is a very dope album as well. It's more of her sort of getting her personality out there, sort of her doing this this storytelling thing. She really opened up a lot more about herself in that one, but at the same time there was a lot more missing. And a lot of people were just desperate for more, desperate to find out who H.E.R was. And that's exactly what we all got this past year, at least for me. In 2020, when I watched the Grammys for the first time in a long ass time since I was a kid, H.E.R actually did a performance at the Grammys. I think that was the first time that she finally showed her face. I was actually surprised that she came out, because I was like, holy shit, that's how she looks like. She came through with a fucking electric guitar and shit. She was playing the guitar and everything. She did a very spectacular fucking performance, and she's dropped many new singles, and this album is everything we all wanted, as H.E.R finally not only reveals herself, but allows herself to be a lot more vulnerable and a lot more open about her pain. And one thing's for damn sure is that H.E.R definitely reveals herself to be a fucking force to be reckoned with, because this entire album is really fucking good. I gotta say that although rap music this year has not been as good lately, it's a very unhealthy balance of the majority of it being very crappy rap music, unfortunately, and the very few, maybe 5% that are coming out with decent projects. Although I have said many times that rap hasn't really been that good this year, I do have to agree with some of my homies when they say that R&B has definitely been kicking ass this year, and this album is fucking living proof of it. One thing I'm definitely not used to seeing is an R&B artist who not only has a really good singing voice, but the fact that they also work very hard on the production value. I feel that a lot of R&B artists and just artists in general are so focused on just their writing and whatnot, that they don't even focus that much on what the production is going to be like. It's very rare when you get to hear an artist use an actual instrument instead of doing everything on a computer. Not saying that that's not what H.E.R does on this album. There's a lot of obvious production value that was probably done on FL Studio or some shit like that. But You know, she does include many guitar solos on this album. It's very rare when you can see that. It just sort of like brings you back to what music really felt like. Back in the day when they didn't have all this technology and a lot of artists had to rely on actual instruments to get the production value right. I really did appreciate what her had to do, what her offered for this album. I really enjoyed the many great guitar solos, especially on the first track. The first track, like that whole like maybe minute of her just playing on the guitar was everything for me. That truly like made me excited to hear what this album was gonna offer. Another great thing about the production value is that it celebrates everything that R&B is. It has very classic, traditional R&B stuff to it, sort of with a like trap twist to it as well, like a modern trap twist to it. She has a lot of like slow jams, a lot of like funky grooves to it. Her definitely included a lot of like different like sounds to it to make anyone enjoy it. She truly came through to like not only appreciate the genre that has made her big, but to truly like be a student in it, and pretty much like be be sort of like a teacher to any like new artist that wants to do some new shit. Like her definitely sounds like she is in her own style and is sort of creating a new wave for R&B music. And obviously, Her's voice is very amazing and very memorable as well. It's very obvious that Her can hit those high notes extremely well, especially if you ever heard the song Best Part with Daniel Caesar. That song is very beautiful, and mostly because Her just steals that fucking spotlight. So on this project, she brings back more of that soulful and angelic voice that we all know and love. She has many segments on here where it's just a lot of slow jams, and she just like hypnotizes you with her voice. But I would say that on this particular project, she definitely like, you can definitely notice that she's a lot more confident in it. She is not afraid of her own voice anymore. She's not afraid of the amount of potential that she can have on the music industry, and she definitely like hits those high notes a lot more better than the past two projects, I would argue. At the same time, Her does challenge herself a little bit to make her singing voice a lot more a lot more memorable and unique. She has many segments, very few segments where she has a sort of like deep voice that like I wouldn't say she sounds sinister, but she just sounds like a lot more darker, like just a lot more serious, like she's about to go down. She is very good at switching from that deep voice to that sort of like high angelic voice as well, especially on the song Damage. Damage is a song that a lot of people have heard, and I've heard it here and there too, because my girlfriend is a very big fan of that song. But after hearing this album, I gotta say that Damage is still my favorite song on the album because it's just so memorable. It's a very unique R&B song. It's something that we haven't heard in the longest time. It's very rare to see when an artist has her own style. I would argue that Her definitely like has a sort of like a female Bryson Tiller vibe to her. This album has many moods to it, as Her, like I said, allows herself to be a lot more vulnerable and starts to talk about stuff that we're all kind of afraid to talk about. Stuff like heartbreak, being afraid to love, just everything going on in the back of your mind that you are afraid to let out. It's there are very like, there are many parts in this album where it's super relatable, both in a very sad way and a little bit in a happy way as well. But for the most part, like she does like talk about a lot of like tragic stuff, being afraid to love, knowing that you're a hard person to love, not wanting to let go of somebody. She has a few moments where she is having fun and whatnot, and like, creating some very classic, like a catchy like radio hits. But honestly, I am so surprised to see that Her managed to take something like so sad, as heartbreak and just all this like hard stuff that people like are afraid to talk about. How she manages to take such a serious topic that should make us all a little bit sad and just turn it into something beautiful. Something that'll make you happy. Something that'll give you optimism for a while. She really like found a way to take all this tragic stuff and turn it into something beautiful, which I personally really love. And although it's very little, I would argue that the guest list definitely contributes very well to the mood of the album. One of them was the track entitled Trauma, which includes a production credit to Hit Boy himself, a very, very great and legendary producer. And it includes a rap verse from Cordae himself, someone who I didn't expect to be on this album at all. I always felt that her and Cordae had a sort of like a different, a vibe, because Cordae is a lot more aggressive when he raps, and her is, she does like some slow jams. But Cordae does do stuff where he makes some serious raps and whatnot. He's very lyrical, but his storytelling is very, very great. And both him and her create this very heartbreaking and powerful, story about trauma. Both of them talking about the traumas and everything. Her like being very open about it, and Cordae, like constantly just talking about, like how compassionate in some ways is always viewed as weakness and whatnot. How there's not that much compassion in this world anymore, and because of that, you get traumatized, because you get hurt by it. Taking your compassion and kindness for weakness is a very, very big topic in today's world, unfortunately. And I personally loved the like rap and R&B, switch off to it. I personally felt that maybe a rap verse in an album like this wouldn't work well, but surprisingly, it worked very, very well. And especially when Cordae and her definitely, they both typically do talk about a lot of hard shit that people don't like to talk about. So I definitely did appreciate the feature with Cordae on this album. Another great track was definitely the song entitled "Come Through" with Chris Brown, which I think was the second single before the album came out. Everyone has heard this song already, I assume. But I do want to talk about it for a little bit, because it's a very classic, like radio hits R&B song. Something that you would hear in the early 2000s. Chris Brown's music these days, in my opinion, doesn't really hit the same anymore. But it's certain songs like this that they sort of remind me of the old school Chris Brown, back when he was really, really fucking big, and he like made a lot of great songs and whatnot. I feel that these days, Chris Brown is sort of like a hit or miss, but I definitely did enjoy, his voice on here. Both him and her, talking about, just wanting their favorite person to come through and whatnot. No matter what happens, no matter what they feel about each other, come through tonight and just pretty much vibe and forget all the bad shit for a while. It's one of those songs that you can really vibe to, and just makes you like get lost into their voices. And finally, there was the very surprisingly well-crafted song entitled Slide with YG, someone who I never thought would show up on a song like this. I know YG has done some sort of like slow shit before, but it's mostly like on some rap shit. It's never on some R&B shit, and it's very rare when he does shit like this. And honestly, I did not think that this song was gonna turn out great, because YG for the most part is very, very fucking disgusting sometimes, and he just makes some pretty like nasty shit sometimes. I personally enjoy it, but I know that most people wouldn't enjoy it, and I know that those who are very big fans of R&B wouldn't think that YG belongs on a song like this. But both YG and her work out so fucking well with each other. They really like find a way to find that perfect balance of like old school R&B to like old school hip hop and whatnot. It definitely sounds like an old school rap song, where you have an R&B artist who's singing the chorus, and there's the rapper doing his verses and whatnot. Only it's flipped, because obviously it's a H.E.R album, and H.E.R definitely like takes the spotlight throughout this whole song. I'm personally a bit sad that YG has only one verse in there, but it's it's very common, and it's very expected for him to have just one verse, because H.E.R does take most of the spotlight throughout the whole album. But it's a very classic, sort of like nostalgic R&B / rap song. So I definitely do recommend y'all to hear that song, because it's for those of you that really, really love nostalgia and are missing like this type of music, it's this one is definitely for you. Now, although this project is nearly perfect, I did have a few complaints about this project. Number one, there were two features on here with Ty Dolla $ign and Bryson Tiller that I felt shouldn't have been on the album to begin with. And it's not because they weren't talented and they didn't contribute well to her. It's just that they don't really have big parts in this album. They don't have their own verses. They're just there for backup vocals. Ty Dolla $ign shows up on the title track of the album, Back of My Mind. And I was really, really like excited to see how Ty Dolla $ign and her would sound like together. And it just sort of made me a bit sad to see that Ty Dolla $ign was just there for a backup vocal. Same thing with Bryson Tiller. He just was there for the backup vocals, and for the most part, you kind of forget that he's supposed to be in the song because her is pretty much the main attraction throughout this whole album. But to be fair, it's not really hers or Bryson Tiller's fault that this particular song turned out that way. The song is entitled "I Can Have It All," and that is actually an album that showed up on DJ Khaled's recent album this year entitled Khaled Khaled. It isn't really their song. Is a DJ Khaled song, or well, I guess at this point, it's not really a DJ Khaled song since most of the time he like uses old beats and rarely makes his own beats. So I really don't know how to credit DJ Khaled on this particular song. So yeah, I won't blame Bryson Tiller or her for this particular song showing up that way because it wasn't really theirs to begin with. And with every DJ Khaled song, there's always some weird shit going on with that. I will also say that the Find a Way song with Lil Baby was the only track on here that I felt was way out of place, especially with Lil Baby. Out of every feature on here that is on the album, I feel that Lil Baby definitely doesn't belong here. He is way out of place. He sticks out like a sore thumb and not in the right way and not in the good way at all. And the other thing about this song is that her raps on this. Yes, I'm not even kidding. She raps on it like she doesn't sing, like she raps on it. I guess she kind of does a sort of rap singing thing, but it's mostly like a rap song because it's it has this very basic trap beat to it. I do appreciate her trying to truly make this a unique R&B album and truly and do the style that Lil Baby does, but honestly this song I think it either could have been done better with a different artist or it just shouldn't have been on there at all because it sticks out and not in the good way. It is honestly the only track on here that I didn't like. And finally, I will say that I wish the album was a bit shorter. The album has 21 songs, 22 if you have Apple Music and have the access to hers a film that she made for this album. But if you don't have Apple Music, it is 21. It is a 21 track album. It is about an hour and 28 minutes, somewhere around there. It is a very, very long album to get through. And it's not that I think that an hour long album shouldn't exist. I've listened to many hour long albums, but when it's close to an hour and a half, that's my limit because unfortunately these days a lot of us are very, very busy and we can't really find the time where we have an hour of our day that we're not going to use so we can just listen to an R&B album. I'm sure there are many, many people out there that do have that time, and if you do, I fucking salute you and I fucking envy you. But for me, this album took a long time for me to review, both on my Instagram and to give out to you guys on YouTube, because I dead ass couldn't find a single hour of my life right now, with me trying to balance out, my social life and my school life and my work life and everything, and trying to do YouTube at the same time. It's very, very rarely when I get an hour to myself where I can just hear an album. So I do wish that it was a bit short, because not only do some people just don't have the patience and time to want to hear an hour and a half album, but at the same time it gets a bit repetitive for some people. Like I said, I personally love the album, but I know many people that have said that they felt that it got a bit boring because once you get to maybe the 10th track, it's sort of just the same shit over and over, which I get that. Repetitiveness is very, very bad, but in my opinion that doesn't really bother me. What bothered me is that I didn't have the time to really hear this album and give it my full attention sometimes. And it sucked for a bit, but I could still understand and appreciate you know, the masterpiece that this album is. Besides those three complaints, I gotta say that this is probably the best R&B album I've heard this year. Like I said, R&B has been kicking ass, and this album is a living proof of it. Her has definitely proved to be one of the most gifted and talented artists of her generation. You know, she is definitely paving the way for many new R&B artists who want to do something different. You know, she is definitely creating a new wave, and is definitely creating a new sound, and you know, just pretty much changing how R&B is going to be heard. And you know, I definitely have high expectations for not only her but for many R&B artists as well, because you know, it's gonna take a lot to beat this project. You know, it is very good. You know, besides that one song with Lil Baby, I personally loved every single like second of this album. And you know, personally, I would go back and hear it again and again. And because of that, I'm gonna give this album a 9 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed my review, what did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Have you heard it? What are your favorite tracks? What are your least favorite tracks? Please let me know in the comment sections down below. I would love to hear your opinions about it. And with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, click that button below, all that good stuff. And don't forget to stay happy.
It's like I'm living a dream, that's how to reach. I've been cooking like Walter and Jesse B. Kisses, I ain't trying to be a prodigy. Past deep.